There's a lot going on right now about fairs. The other day, Governor DeWine on his daily conversations, he talked about fairs. He has not made any decisions about fairs. We don't know whether or not we're going to experience a statewide ban on fairs, but we do know that he is going to slowly start reopening the government and some other industries, but things where large groups of people gather together will likely be one of the last things that get opened back up. So I don't have any answers about whether or not the state is going to have a fair, whether or not every county is going to have a fair. But I do know that from listening to his conversations, he hasn't made any decisions, and they're going to use research to make those decisions. They're going to use data to inform their decision making. So basically, we're still on the rise when it comes to confirmed cases. That has something to do with the number of tests we now have available. It also has something to do with the fact that some of our counties are just now starting to experience some community spread. Although our urban counties experienced spread several weeks ago, some of our more rural counties are just now starting to experience that. And we have a lot of rural counties in Ohio. Although most of our state does live in urban environments, we do have a lot of communities where they're just now starting to experience that spread. So there's really no answer. If we were to hold a fair tomorrow, it would obviously be canceled. But July, we just don't know. So you will see that the Community Fair Association sent out a letter. I also outlined some things in an email last week that you could send to your club members. So I'm going to kind of go over those. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask questions. We have a number of things that are kind of in flux. Project interviews, we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow to kind of finalize the details, but it sounds like project interviews are going to continue on June 23rd and 30th as planned. However, they will be video submissions. So like I said, we have a meeting tomorrow to kind of finalize details, but I've been meeting with, we have a local meeting to finalize those details. I've been meeting with different educators around the state via Zoom, because we can't meet in person, about how we're going to do judging. And one of my favorite ideas, and one of the easiest to implement ideas that we have, is to do video submissions. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to build a web page on our county website. Youth will receive a rubric through their advisors. So you guys will get those rubrics. Youth will film a video that's some length of time, between 5 minutes and 20 minutes long. We'll nail down the exact time. They'll film a video. They will have to submit their project book in some way. So there are some different options that we're looking into for project book submissions. There are apps that you can use as a scanner on your phone. They're not amazing, but they do work. Another option that I'm exploring, because I am our county's mail steward apparently right now. So you might be able to send project books into the office via US mail, and we'll pick them up there, and then we could scan them in ourselves to get those delivered to the judges. The youth will also need to create some kind of display that can be shared digitally. So I'll be sending out some guidance when I work with some of my other educator counterparts in other counties about what a PowerPoint slide might look like and how to send that out. Youth would still be able to create a physical poster if they want, but that physical poster will need to be somehow digitized. So those are the ways that we'll do that. If somebody doesn't have access to digital resources, we will obviously have an alternative system for them. What that will look like will probably be mailing things to the office, and then we get those to the judges or to an advisor to look at. That's another option that we're exploring for those people who have low opportunity to connect with technology. A lot of counties in the state are going to be doing Zoom interviews, and while I did consider that for a minute, I do not think that institutionally in our state we have access to those kinds of resources on a wide scale to ensure that all of our youth have access to high-speed internet. And so I've kind of been discouraging the use of Zoom for interviews. The other problem with the Zoom interviews is we would need at least 3 people on each call, the youth being interviewed, an adult, and a moderator, and we would have, each room would have to have a password, which would make it particularly challenging to get into because we want to make sure they're secure. There'd be a lot of issues with using an online platform like Zoom that we just are not set up to use yet. So a video submission with a rubric that's provided to each youth with some specific questions to answer and some specific things they need to show. in a 5 to 20-minute video that they would submit that a judge would then review is the most likely option that we're considering, and it's the one that I'm really pushing for. Like I said, I'll build a web page on our county website where all that could be dumped, or I'll create a blog site where that can all be dumped. The great thing about doing the video interviews is that we'll actually be able to use those for a virtual fair. So if the youth do their interviews on video and they share their PowerPoint slide or they share their poster digitally, and they also have their book completed digitally, then we'll be able to upload all of that to different pages for different purposes. So we could have a whole week where perhaps we have a couple of older 4-H members who would be willing to share posts all day long on Facebook and Instagram or Twitter or other places. We would obviously get parental permission for all of this. Each youth who submits online will be required to have a parent check it and digitally sign a form for me to ensure. We also know the youth who signed up through 4-H Online that their parents signed or declined to sign photo releases. So we already have a photo release, I think, on all of our kids except for a few. In those particular cases, I have a file on, unfortunately, my office, but I can always go back and generate a report and get that information. So, but I want to, for this specific purpose, I want to get another background or another photo release, because we'll be releasing it for a specific purpose in partnership with our fair association. So, because we'll have all these digital resources, we could actually run a digital fair that week, and that would be really cool. Some of our junior leaders might be able to step up. I've asked our junior leaders to meet a couple of times and haven't heard back from Rebecca Thomas about scheduling that meeting, so I might just have to jump on it myself and make sure we get that set up, because we do need to start having those conversations about how we're going to share digital resources the week of fair. I will bring up the letter from the community fair here in a few minutes about what they think fair might look like, but you did see that they had some specific requests and requirements for fair this year about livestock and what they can and cannot show for various reasons. We've had lots of conversations about that. There are a lot of things that are beyond anybody's control. So you've also seen that Harvest Home Fair is canceled this year. That's really disappointing. They're obviously a huge partner, so continue to show them some love. You will have seen by now that project books, some of them are available online. I'll start sharing that information now that some books are actually on there. And you've also seen that residents of Ohio can order books using these 2 different discount codes, this free 2020 and 20 in 2020 code. Because we are unable to go to our office right now, we cannot distribute books. We're under a stay-at-home order as an agency that's funded by the state of Ohio. We have to follow the governor's orders. That includes all of our volunteers. So you can't be distributing project books. I can't be distributing project books. I'm not allowed in my office. So this is kind of how it's working across the state. So the workaround has been that our extension publication site was able to create a couple of coupon codes because it's just some background information about why it took so long to create these. Because in my mind, I'm like, this seems like a simple fix. Why don't we just do this day one? Apparently, there is a hosting site for the books. There is a pay site or a pay service. And then beyond that, there is a separate shipping service. So I get that. That makes sense. And the 3 were not, the code had to work on all 3 systems. And when we tried to create some codes, we as in 4-H, not myself, I'm not a part of this process. When they tried to create some codes, it caused glitches in other areas. And the code had to specifically be for the state of Ohio because of the way tax dollars work, and it got very complicated. So it took some time to get those codes working, but they finally got them up and running. So you can use those codes. I do know we have a few families that are across the state border in Indiana and Kentucky. So those families are not able to use this free in 2020. So if you're an advisor, make sure they know that. As a 4-H advisor, you cannot distribute project books except through the mail. But you know, that's in your official capacity as 4-H volunteers. So there are other ways that they could access the books. If you were to order them, you can always mail them to them. That's an option to consider as well. So we still have a stay-at-home order until May 1st. That's what we're all living under, so we can't do anything in person. You likely saw that And I'll scroll down here because I'm already talking about this last thing on my list, which was number 9, this July 6th date. We are unable to hold any in-person programs until after July 6th. That date happens to be the middle of the summer term and the end of the A term in summer for OSU. Excuse me. And so that date makes some logical sense for the university. The president kind of put that down, the university president put that down and said, this is our date. So we're all following suit. There is potential for that date to change and be moved earlier if things kind of improve. But right now that's the date we're looking at. So because of that July 6th date, we decided to cancel all camps in Ohio, which I know is a huge disappointment, but we cannot schedule all of the Ohio 4-H camps in a one and a half month period of time. We just can't do it. So we are considering some other camp opportunities for our youth in September. One of those is to hold a camp at Camp Graham, where we normally camp, just over a weekend. But all of that will depend on whether or not we're allowed to have mass gatherings. So even when we're able to open back up starting May 1st, it sounds like, we still probably won't be able to have mass gatherings. Large groups still won't be able to get together. So that'll make things really complicated. So July 6th hopefully gives us enough time that we can plan appropriately. So I know that you've all gotten really good at using digital resources to communicate with your family and friends, but it looks like we're gonna be doing it with 4-H until at least July 6th. As you know, our fair started on July 8th. We considered moving project judging to July 7th and 8th and doing setup on 7th and 8th, but there are a number of issues that we'll talk about here in just a minute with fair and doing that. All clubs are still required to meet 6 times throughout the year, and they can be any time before September 30th of 2020. So if you can't get your 6 club meetings in by July, that's fine. Youth just need to have opportunity to meet with their club 6 times before September 30th of 2020, because our 4-H year runs October 1st, 2020 to September 30th of 2021. That's the USDA calendar. So we just need to make sure that they have those 6 club meetings. I am personally counting online meetings. I say online meetings count. So I do have to kind of rely on you guys to make sure that's happening. I know Susan and Dean have been doing that. And I know that they even led some quality assurance training virtually the other night. So I hope that's going really well. But they do have to have that opportunity to meet 6 times, and we're going to count virtual meetings. Dean and I had a conversation the other day about some online club opportunities that we can also consider. So you're on this call, maybe you guys can think about this a little bit. We are spinning out a number of spin club opportunities, and those specific opportunities are related to specific project books. So different educators and different communities are going to hold online classes for several weeks over the course of the summer and into the fall to give kids some online opportunities to engage with 4-H curriculum. Obviously our numbers for 4-H are going to be way down this year because we can't partner with the schools to do a lot. So these online clubs could be an opportunity to cross county lines, meet new people. But I also would like to encourage you, if there's a project that you're particularly passionate about, I can send you the template and set you up with some resources, and you guys could actually host some spin club, special interest club meetings on some of the projects that our kids are doing so that you can help them complete them, and those would count toward their 6 meetings a year. While it wouldn't be with your traditional club, and it's going to be a little harder to track, youth could say, I wasn't able to go to club meetings because our club couldn't have a meeting, but my advisor continued to send me things, you know, that kind of thing. But I went to these other events for this year to count that. So you as the advisor would just have to kind of help me keep track of that. I'm working through all of that now because we've really not had a strong way to keep track of all of that before, but that's what we were supposed to be doing. So we're working through all that. And Susan, I saw you unmuted yourself. Is there something you wanted to share?
I did, and then you probably heard my kids. I was gonna say, yeah, we did have a successful online meeting. Our prior meeting happened to hit like days before we actually went on shutdown or lockdown, whatever we're calling it anymore.
Whatever.
We actually invited the Madeira Indian Hill Fire Department to do like first aid and CPR. They ended up not really doing CPR, nothing official certifiable, but just some
Yeah.
basics. They showed us their rig and all that stuff, and the kids asked a bunch of great questions. We just sent them a Zoom link, and it went really well. And they're open. It was a first for them, but they were really open to it. So I think it's just a matter of reaching out, because we had planned to go there in person.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, I happened to see this through actually my home growing up county 4-H, and it was fed through them through Purdue. They had one of their state cake decorating judges do a online demonstration, several, I don't know. I couldn't,
Yeah.
we went to get on and they had maxed out the 300 person capacity.
Yes, I've heard about
So it
this
was
in other
way
places.
popular. So they said it was going to be recorded. And so like Corinne's going to watch that.
Yeah.
So like anything that, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're keeping track of it a lot, but anything like that can be passed on would be awesome, because I mean, that was apparently hugely popular.
Yeah, so I think I gave all of you guys who are on this call right now access to our Facebook page. So if you see anything like that, feel free to share it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, I totally forget that I can't do that.
Yeah, because that's going to be the easiest way, because we just want like seamless communication. And yeah, like there's a ton of that stuff coming out right now. I don't even know what to do with half of it, because we just get so much. And then there's all these other things that keep coming up that I'm supposed to be figuring out right now throughout our end state, because places like Purdue have a very strong central connection. Purdue, Indiana's extension program is very different than Ohio's. Ohio and Kentucky are very similar, but Indiana, the way they run theirs is very different. They're very strong state-run organization, whereas we're starting to move in that direction for a lot of reasons, but there's still a lot of local support and a lot of local, a lot of the control is kept at the local level, which is starting to become a challenge, financially. And so we're moving more toward a state model, but it's been a very slow process in Ohio. But yeah, so Purdue has a lot of that great state stuff. So yeah, if you guys see anything like that, please share it on the Facebook page. Just put it out there, because people should see that stuff and be able to access it, and that would be great. Yeah, just share it. That's the best thing I can say. But yeah, Susan, I heard your meeting was great, so I'm glad that went well. Like I said, you still have to meet 6 times a year. I'm counting the online meetings. From what I understand, if you hear otherwise, and that is true, some counties are not counting the online meetings. The USDA has not said that the online meetings count, but I don't think that they're going to have much of a choice, so we're going with it. And like I said, in Ohio, we still have a lot of local control, so the state's not giving us guidance on that, so I've made my decision. We do have quality assurance trainings that are still available. Youth have several options for quality assurance this year. You can take it online with one of our quality assurance instructors here. So Lindsay Horlander, Tim Dickey, Chris, you're one of them, Debbie Roll, or Rachel Eric. So you can contact one of them to help set up the quality assurance for your club. I did have one scheduled tonight for 6 o'clock, but nobody confirmed with me that they wanted to attend that. So I'll probably just pop in there. And if no one's there, I won't do anything. But if there are some people there, I'll do quality assurance training for them. Because apparently I have another meeting at 7 o'clock that was scheduled for me that I didn't know about. So if I don't have to do that, that'd be great. But so we do still have to offer quality assurance training. All of our youth who are exhibiting and taking animal projects market projects have to do that. I encourage all youth taking an animal project to go to quality assurance. It is required for our youth taking market animals, but anybody who's taking an animal should just want to take this course, because it's just an ongoing reminder of how to care for your animals. And it's an important step in the development of our youth, learning to care for another living thing. So I think it's a great training that we should all be encouraging our youth to go into. Statewide, the rule is specific market animals, but I think in Hamilton County, we decided that all market animals, and that's something that as an advisory committee and as advisors after this year's fair, you guys are going to have some chances to weigh in on. We're going to look at the rules for Hamilton County to find out which ones are outdated, which ones are not in alignment with the state requirements or state guidance. And I think our quality assurance is pretty good, but there are some other rules that we're going to have to look at to make sure that we're in compliance with some other issues. So you will likely get some documents. and they might be long after our fair later this summer. I'm assuming in probably July or August. You do not need to read the whole document, but what I will encourage you to do is go through and look at some sections that interest you and provide some feedback. We want these documents to be in compliance with some state rules and regulations. We have the option to make things more strict in the local counties, but we don't have the option to make them less strict. And so, for example, with quality assurance, if we say that all market animals have to go to quality assurance, that's fine. But we can't say that they don't have to do it at all because it's a state law. But you'll get some of that probably later in the summer. Our advisory committee will start putting that together, and then our advisors will get to weigh in on some of that. I think I've covered everything in my email that was pertinent today. There are a number of online resources that you should know about. We have our stay-at-home projects, which are several project books that I will open up here in a minute and show you. So those are available for youth to download and do at home. They can do them as a 4-H project through this downloadable link, and that would be a great project to submit for judging this year or interviews this year. There are also a number of self-determined projects, which I love to use when I do things in the classroom. So that's something to consider this year. I've also been posting a lot of videos, 3 a week, that youth can watch just to keep them entertained or engaged. So I also wanted to bring up the letter from the Community Fair Association, just so that we can give this a quick once over. So I've been meeting with the Community Fair Association and their executive board a lot about the fair. We do not know if we will or will not have fair this year, but we are moving forward as though we are going to have a fair, making plans that are appropriate, both fiscally and for the safety of our youth. The fair is scheduled for July 8th through the 11th. Like I said, we don't know what the rules are going to be on mass gatherings. We don't even know if Strickers Grove is going to be able to open because they're considered an amusement park. They have been talking to Strickers Grove, so they're well aware of these issues as well. Everybody's kind of in agreement that these are the appropriate plans to make right now. And so the board will meet again on May 14th. By then, we'll have had 2 weeks after the reopening of our state, and we'll have some better ideas. Listening to Dr. Acton a couple of days ago, she mentioned that it will likely take 21 days for the state to make determinations every time they reduce restrictions or enforce new restrictions. So on May 1st, when they start opening things up, they're going to do so slowly. And if the number of cases continues to rise, they might kind of pull in a little bit, but it'll take 21 days to actually know, because the incubation time of the virus can be up to 14 days. And it takes some time to get the data. So she said that basically after May 1st, every 3 weeks, they'll start to make determinations. And so if numbers continue to go down, they'll just continue to open things up. If they go up, they'll kind of tighten things in again. So May 14th will give us a couple of weeks. We'll have some preliminary ideas about what's going to happen, and we'll be able to kind of look forward to July and say yay or nay. That also happened to be the next date of their meeting, so it works out pretty well. So the options that they're looking at is Hamilton County 4-H will conduct general livestock project judging is scheduled in late June, which is true. We're going to do that, and we're going to do that online. People will submit their videos through an online platform that I'll create, and we'll be able to share those videos for an online exhibition. This is not just, and like it says here, this isn't just livestock projects. These are all projects, general projects included. And for those of you who are a little confused, I will give a little explanation here. Previously, our Community Fair Association was called the Hamilton County 4-H Association. In Ohio, 4-H is not run by separate nonprofits. So at some point, they were spun back under OSU's general exemption and became an affiliate of the university. Ohio State does not have the power or authority to run fairs as part of the agreement with the Ohio Department of Agriculture and the Ohio Fair Managers Association. So we agreed as a group that they would spin off to run the fair. So they became the Hamilton County Community Fair Association, and they run the fair. because 4-H doesn't run fairs in Ohio. We just don't. Ohio State doesn't do that. We don't have the authorization to do that. There are laws and agreements well above the university that dictate who runs fairs. So that is done through ODA and the Ohio Fair Managers Association. So OFMA, one separate organization, separate from the university to run fairs. So the limit of 4-H in the beginning of the fair is after project interviews. So for a youth to finish a 4-H project in the state of Ohio, they've done the project, they've filled out their book, and they've gone to an interview with a judge. At that point, the work of 4-H is technically done. We know that's not true, but on paper, that's when the work of 4-H ends, that interview. At the next phase, they've registered to be an exhibitor at the fair. That means that they're a part of the fair. And this becomes really important if we hold an in-person fair. Right now, it's not that important because it looks like the opening date for 4-H to start to do projects again is July 6th. So it won't really matter. But if that date were to extend further into the future, if they said that 4-H couldn't hold in-person events until August 1st, 4-H would not be allowed to participate in the fair. That doesn't mean that our youth wouldn't be allowed to participate, because once they complete their project judging or their project interviews, they become exhibitors at the fair. And although they might be representing 4-H, they're not 4-H members there. They're a fair exhibitor. That is their primary function. So the fair has to maintain the insurance on them. The fair has to run all those events. Oftentimes the fair people running the events happen to be 4-H volunteers. And we know that, and that's just a part of the way things work, especially in a world where we don't have unlimited volunteers. But the official ending of 4-H is those interviews. The official beginning of the fair is exhibiting at the fair. So that's why this first bullet is important to understand. Again, it doesn't really matter because July 6th is our opening date, but if for some reason we were able to hold an in-person fair, but OSU to extend their date until August 1st, that's where things could get sticky, and we need that kind of stuff cleaned up before that event. So livestock this year for the fair, I'm just going to read this section because it's very important that we get this right. The fair is working to make sure that youth have a way to sell market animals. Should we, the fair, be unable to hold a traditional fair, we will host an online auction. They've already communicated with an organization about doing that online auction. And members and families will be responsible for transporting animals to the processors on designated dates. That was an agreement that we kind of came to because they won't be transporting their animals to the fairgrounds. They will just, be transporting them to the processor on the designated date. That will be the appropriate option. It's not putting that much more strain on a family. It's stressful because it's a different situation, but it's not any more work because you're only moving them one time. The auction will be for those animals. The original possession date, the dates have occurred before the date of this letter. So the auction will only be for steers, turkey, goats, sheep, and swine. There was an extension of possession dates for goats, sheep, and swine to May 1st. Because we know that a lot of youth were putting some things on hold because they didn't know whether or not we were going to be able to hold a fair because all of this is pretty chaotic. If youth have already purchased these animals, have not already purchased these animals, they're strongly recommending that they're not purchased for 4-H this year. I let them put that in there because we need them to be our distributors of these market products. And so goats, sheep, and swine are going to be hard for them to get rid of or help to sell, to process. So they ask that if they're not already in possession, don't go get them. So it's important that you share that information. If they already have them, it's fine. They'll continue to work with those species. But if they don't already have them, don't go get them because there are a number of issues with processing this year. A number of the plants that we typically use or would go to have shut down. Some of them are across state lines, and that makes things very complicated. So we just don't have the processing capacity this year through the fair. That's where things get really sticky and challenging. So we're here for market animals with original possession dates after this letter. Market ducks, geese, feeder calves, chicken meat pens, chicken roasters, and market rabbits. Those are the ones where they're going to have a hard time getting them processed. So they ask that they're not a part of exhibition this year with the fair. So if you have chickens, ducks, geese, kids can still do those projects. It's fine. It's just they will not be processed through the livestock sale with the fair this year. They will still go through project interviews with 4-H. They will still get ribbons that way, but there won't be an exhibition at the fair this year for those meat products. If a traditional fair is not possible. If a traditional fair is possible by July, then those species will just go on as planned. We still want kids to complete their project books. So a lot of counties are really worried that kids won't finish project books because there isn't that fair opportunity. We still don't know whether or not we're going to have a fair in Hamilton County, but we will ensure that the kids have an opportunity to exhibit. And that's what this online fair is going to give. So the way I envision that is that the youth, like I said, will go through this project judging or project interview process where they'll receive a rubric from myself, which I'll probably send out through the advisors. The youth will record a 5 to 20-minute video based on that rubric. They will have a presentation tool of some kind, likely a PowerPoint slide with some photos, or they will have a poster they've taken a picture of, and they will also have their project book. Somehow I will receive their project book. We'll figure that out. So those 3 pieces will come to an online Dropbox of some kind. There will be a typical naming convention for the files. Likely what we'll do is we'll ask the youth to name the file the project number, so 320, and then last name, comma, first name, so that we can get those in the appropriate boxes for judges. And then those will be sent out to judges. Judges will fill out an online form. I will receive all of that in a spreadsheet, and I will generate forms that go out to each child individually, kind of outlining how they did. And I should be, in theory, able to carbon advisors on that email. Yes, I know how to do that. I had to think for a minute if there's a way I could do that, then I have a much easier way to do that. So I can carbon you on those responses so you know as well, so that all the youth, so that we're ensured that all the youth get those messages. But we want every kid who's taking a project to complete their projects and do as many project interviews as they would as if it were regular fair. Then what will happen is I will have a static page on our website that will be linked also to the county fair site. And that static page will house all of the information from our kids' exhibitions. And then we will work with our junior leaders and some other people to share those links through social media the week of July 8th, or the dates of July 8th through 11th. So every hour, potentially there's a post, or every couple hours there's a post, and they kind of come up and people can see them. Then our youth can share them on their own. Then we might have some times where it's like, we might just say that between these hours is all about swine. And so all the swine projects get posted every 15 minutes or something. We'll figure all of that out. But there will be an online exhibition opportunity through our social networking, so that our youth still have that opportunity to engage with the community. So that's why these interviews are going to be so fun, is that we're going to be able to show exactly what our youth are doing. It's also a really important marketing tool for 4-H. We want as many kids to finish these projects as we can, because as we move into the future and we start thinking about fundraising, we want to be able to have these artifacts to send to donors, to potential supporters, to say like, hey, even when we shut down, our advisors were working hard, our kids were working hard, everybody kept doing things, and we did what communities do. We got together and kept ourselves busy and doing productive things. So we want to make sure that we're telling that story well. So I would love, if you guys have any questions, to go ahead and throw those out there. I'm willing to listen and respond to what I can, or write them down and get the answers. If you don't have any questions right now, you know you're always welcome to email me, staubach.9@osu.edu. I am more than happy to answer questions that way too.
Hey, Tony, it's Becky.
Hey.
Hey, project commitment forms, they're
Yes.
happening online, correct? Like through
Yes.
a link. And that's May, is it May 8th? Is that right?
I have an email from Cindy, and yes, I believe it's May 8th. Let me double check that real quick.
Okay.
So thank you for reminding me. My plan was to get all of that uploaded to our county website today, and lo and behold, it all shut down. Too many people were trying to get on there to do editing, so it shut down. I'm looking for Cindy's email. Zoom interviews. It's May 8th. It's got to be. I feel like that's the date I know. let's see, online forms. But yes, all the forms are online. She's created links. Cindy has done an amazing job. I can't thank her enough for that. But yeah, May 8th is when they're due. They'll be going out. I wanted to send those out today before this call or even just after this call. But like I said, I couldn't get things on our website because there are too many people on there trying to edit, and it's causing a system crash. So that's great. So probably late tonight, I'll get on there and create the web page for project interviews and get all that stuff out to you guys the next day or so. But yes, all those forms are online, and you will get a spreadsheet that will just ask you to confirm that those projects make sense in case there's anything that's really weird. That's why we're not requiring a signature this year, because we can do the verification on the back end. The signature is just a verification tool. So, you know, it's 2020. Let's make this easy and get rid of some paper.
I just had one looking forward.
Yeah.
Are you hearing anything about state fair judging?
That's what I've heard. Nothing.
Okay.
So we were on I've been on a bunch of calls about horses, because horses are a whole different thing. And we are considering a lot of different options for state fair judging this year. Specifically with the horse calls, we've been talking about a fear that there may be too many registrants for the state fair. So some county fairs have already started to say, like, obviously if they're happening in June or something, they can't happen. So some of them already started shutting down. So the state fair, what it sounds like they're going to do is open up enrollment pretty soon. And they will be doing kind of a first come, first serve based on last year of eligibility. So they're looking at different systems because their current system doesn't really allow for this. So what they'll do is they'll probably open up early for senior exhibitors, and then open up for junior exhibitors the next day. They're still working on all these details, because for some youth, this will be their last chance to exhibit. And for some youth, this is their only chance to exhibit because they enrolled in 4-H or FFA, later in life or later in their childhood. So they've been talking about how to do registration. But I feel like that's a good sign, because they're talking about doing registration. So that's what we're talking about right now. It sounds like fair in some way, shape, or form will go on. If I had to envision a world where the traditional state fair couldn't be held, my best guess is, given the dates, what they'll probably do is they could probably do small scale judging where people are quarantined into specific areas and judges are in those areas, and there's less than so many people in those areas. There may not be this opportunity for exhibition like we're used to, but there's a huge benefit in holding fairs and events even in the midst of this COVID-19 crisis, because you want to say that you've had you don't want to have a break in service. You don't want to have a break in offering something. So finding workarounds and getting creative is going to be key. That's why 4-H is going to offer this online exhibition for our fair, because it's something that we have the resources to do, and we have access to services that allow for that to happen. So while our fair may not have access to some of these online platforms, Ohio State does, so let's use them and let's help our fair in that way. So that's the state fair is kind of looking at it the same way. They would be really, it'd be a really bad idea for them to have a year with no state fair. So worst comes to worst, by late July, early August, what they're probably going to do is do exhibitions in small areas or do judging in small areas. Push comes to shove, they just do it online, but they will do something, because kind of like the issue with the Philadelphia Public Zoo versus Cincinnati Zoo. So the Philadelphia Zoo is the oldest zoo in the country, but Cincinnati Zoo is the longest operating, because in Philadelphia, during the Spanish flu epidemic, they shut down for a few years, and the Cincinnati Zoo just kept running. So Cincinnati Zoo gets to say they're the longest operating zoo in the country. Philadelphia can always say they're the first, but when it comes to who works harder, the Cincinnati Zoo worked harder because they kept working. So there's a huge, even if there's just a huge reason to say you keep going. It's kind of like, it's bragging rights. So they'll be doing something. But yeah, all we've heard about state fair so far is registration issues. So they're looking forward to having some kind of fair. So that's good. So yeah.